Hi everyone! Today I will present to you my case study about a small island in the Caribbean known as Puerto Rico. It is also called the Island of Enchantment sometimes because of its beaches and beautiful scenery. This is me and my sister in front of the beach. First of all, I would like to give you an outline of my case study. My case study will include an overview of the island, which would be background information, some history, language, and geography. And after that, I will discuss important topics such as the religious landscape, politics, the economy, and as a bonus, I will include food and tourism in the island. And then I will conclude my case study. Overview. So this is some background information. The island was populated by Taino peoples until the Spanish crown in 1493 sent Christopher Columbus to find the Americas. In 1898, after 400 years of colonial rule that saw the indigenous population exterminate and African slave labor introduced, Puerto Rico was ceded to the U.S. as a result of the Spanish-American War. There is a treaty actually called the Treaty of Paris. Due to the strong ties between the U.S. mainland and Puerto Rico, the official languages include English and Spanish, although Spanish is one of the most spoken languages in the island. The population of the island is 3,294,626 people, and the ethnic composition is 75.8% white, 12.4% Black/African American, and 8.5% are others, including American Indians, Alaskan Natives, and Native Hawaiian, and others. Mixed, 3.3. Lastly, it is located in the Caribbean, between the Caribbean Sea and the North Atlantic Ocean, just east of the Dominican Republic. The climate is considered tropical marine with little seasonal variation. Like Professor Resende has mentioned, religion in Latin America is very much linked to colonial roots and Catholic expansionism, especially from Spain. Puerto Rico has followed these trends learned in class, where a large amount of the population is Roman Catholic and a rise in Pentecostalism occurs after. In Puerto Rico, it is very common for families to go to church on Sunday morning and to own religious paintings and figures. Baptisms, marriages, weddings, vigils, processions, and funerals are all causes for family reunions. Lastly, I would like to talk about a famous celebration that has been the Fiestas Patronales or Patron celebration, which are usually done in the town's plaza next to the church, in order to celebrate the patron or saint that represents the town or church. These are filled with music, food, and small artisan pop-ups and carnival rides. Although religion has not been shaped completely by the United States, politics have, ever since the US obtained it from Spain. So let's talk a little bit about politics. Is Puerto Rico a state? That's a very good question. No, Puerto Rico is not a state, but a commonwealth of the United States. This status provides local autonomy to the island, which means they can have a governor, and allows Puerto Rico to publicly display its flag. Puerto Ricans cannot vote for the President of the United States. Are Puerto Ricans U.S. citizens? Yes, Puerto Ricans were granted U.S. citizenship in 1917 under Woodrow Wilson, although his main goal was obtaining more military personnel and not necessarily just providing the citizenship. Who directs the island? Well, popularly elected governors have served the island since 1948, and the governor of Puerto Rico is the highest public office on the island. The current governor is called Ricardo Rosselló. However, the government of Puerto Rico, while it is mainly a local responsibility, is ultimately controlled by the U.S. Congress. There are some characteristics that these governments now share because of the political ties. Puerto Rico's currency is the US dollar. Puerto Ricans served in the armed forces, and the island uses the US Postal Service. Not only that, the American flag is shown in many of the governmental offices in the island. Many believe that the economic crisis is due to the US removal of tax exemptions for businesses, but we will get into that later. To be or not to be, three political parties. The vast majority of Puerto Ricans want to keep the status quo and remain a commonwealth. That is the first symbol that we see up here, the red one. A less popular but vocal camp is in favor of becoming a U.S. state. The reasons center on the right to vote and increased funding from Washington, D.C. This is the blue symbol. An increased smaller minority want independence from Puerto Rico, arguing that national pride and complete autonomy will be worth the growing pains of a new nation that is not supported by federal aid. The economy. For decades, Puerto Rico's economy was booming. A special tax break on the island lured in American businesses such as pharmaceutical companies and manufacturers. Then, in 1996, Congress started discontinuing the tax break, and a decade later, the island went into recession. Rather than cut spending to make up for declining tax revenue, the Puerto Rican government borrowed money instead. Puerto Rico preferred to borrow money through the sale of bonds. The island would take an investor's money and give him a promise to pay the money back with interest. Investors liked the deal because they could earn that interest tax-free. However, Puerto Rico's debt grew and they were in deep trouble, an unpayable debt. And then, on September 2017, a Category 5 hurricane, Maria, came into Puerto Rico. The island was left to face the aftermath and damages of the storm in a place that was lacking investment and an unreliable government. Puerto Rican national debt is now approximately $74 billion, but unlike mainland municipalities, Puerto Rico is not protected by Chapter 9 of the U.S. Bankruptcy Code and cannot file for bankruptcy.
Puerto Rico, a lot of Americans take this opportunity to complain about the island they turned into a colony over 100 years ago. There's this idea that Puerto Ricans aren't pulling their weight, so here's a reminder of what and how Puerto Ricans are expected to pay the government. Puerto Ricans pay about 60% more than the average state in Social Security, but they receive about a third less in Medicare and Medicaid. Puerto Ricans pay insane utility rates. In 2013, the cost of running AC in Puerto Rico was almost 3 times higher than it was in the state of New York. And as a hairy motherfucker who left his AC on for 5 months straight last summer, that's not cheap. Puerto Ricans have to deal with the Jones Act. It was a law passed in 1920, and basically means that all goods going into Puerto Rico have to come on U.S. ships, even if those goods happen to pass Puerto Rico on the way into the U.S. The University of Puerto Rico estimates that in 2010, this lost the island $537 million. I know, everything I said sounded really complicated, but when you are understanding the factors that contribute to Puerto Rico's debt crisis, that shit's the easy part. Big banks and firms were eager to buy up Puerto Rico's debt last year and then make a profit by cutting public services and raising taxes. If this sounds totally unreasonable, that's because it is. When this happens to US cities, they can restructure their debt by declaring bankruptcy. States can't declare bankruptcy, but when they face debt issues, the 10th and 11th Amendment give them a little autonomy in figuring that out. Puerto Rico is neither. They can't declare bankruptcy, and they aren't offered equivalent states' rights.
Next is the food and the tourism. On the top left, we have a very common dish called mofongo. It's made of plantain and can be accompanied by any meat or seafood. On the right, we have arroz con gandules, or pigeon pea rice, and pasteles, which is a very traditional Christmas dish. On the bottom, we have some touristy places that one can visit year-long, and this is why I love going there for vacations. From this presentation, it is important to realize and know how the United States can be a big influence in the economy, government, and citizens of a territory, and how this situation should not be taken lightly. Many believe this is a limbo that does not allow countries to be independent or a part of the colonizer, and this is unfortunate. The island is definitely going through a rough patch, and the economy is projected to get worse before it gets any better. I learned so much from this case study, and I really want others to understand the reason why so many Puerto Ricans have been pushed, as discussed in class, to move to Florida and other states. This has been called the brain drain, and it's going to continue to happen because the economic crisis is at its worst. Although the island has a concerning economic and political crisis, I do encourage others to visit tourist areas and support the economy one way or another. Thank you for your attention.